They thought the cameras had stopped rolling, but that's when it all went left. 1 second, Rasheeda and Yandy were screaming across the room, and the next, Kirk Frost charged in, turning a heated argument into a shocking showdown that nobody saw coming. Betrayal, rage, and raw emotions. This wasn't just reality TV. This was real life boiling over. They thought it was just another night of filming. But nobody could have predicted how quickly things would spiral out of control. The cameras were rolling, the lights were hot, and the cast was already on edge. Rasheeda's voice cut through the air like glass shattering, sharp and unfiltered as she hurled accusations across the room. And standing directly in her line of fire, Yandy, wide-eyed, refusing to back down, refusing to let Rasheeda have the last word. What started as a heated back and forth suddenly exploded into something far darker. Yandy's words landed heavy and Rasheeda's temper snapped. The room froze for a split second, everyone watching as the tension finally broke into raw chaos. But before anyone could step in to cool it down, Kirk Frost made his move, and that's when everything crossed the line from an argument into an all-out confrontation. Kirk didn't just raise his voice. He stormed forward, pointing, shouting, his anger boiling over in a way that cameras rarely caught. It wasn't just about Rasheeda anymore. It wasn't just about Yandy. This was personal. This was years of frustration, betrayal, and secrets bubbling to the surface in one unforgettable moment. The scene turned electric. Cast members tried to hold him back, but Kirk was already locked in, eyes burning toward Yandy. Words flying that couldn't be taken back. And Rasheeda, instead of pulling him away, only fueled the fire with her own sharp jabs, making the whole room spin further out of control. What should have been just another argument for reality TV had suddenly crossed into dangerous territory now. To understand why things got this ugly, you have to rewind. This fight didn't just appear out of thin air. The roots of this explosion go way back to quiet whispers, lingering suspicions, and fragile friendships that had been cracking for years. Rasheeda and Kirk had always been at the center of controversy. Their marriage already tested by infidelity scandals, business struggles, and trust issues was constantly under the spotlight. Rasheeda fought hard to keep her family together, but there were always cracks that the world could see. And Kirk, with his history of questionable decisions, made it even harder to defend him when drama followed them everywhere. Yandy, on the other hand, carried herself as someone who believed in loyalty, in standing by her friends and protecting her family at all costs. She had her own messy battles, mendices, the ups and downs of her own relationship, the constant balancing act between career and personal life. But she still tried to project strength, stability, and control. So how did Rasheeda and Yandy go from casual friends to sworn enemies in one explosive night? It started with subtle shade. Little comments made behind the scenes, frustrations whispered when the cameras weren't rolling. Yandy didn't like the way Kirk treated Rasheeda, and she wasn't afraid to say it. She questioned his loyalty. She questioned his respect. And at times, she questioned Rasheeda for putting up with it all. And Rasheeda, she didn't take kindly to Yandy's judgment. She felt attacked, disrespected, and singled out as if Yandy thought she was better. As if Yandy was the one with all the answers. Every side eye, every sharp word built up like fuel on a fire, waiting for a single spark. That spark came the night of the fight. It started small, a disagreement about loyalty, about what it means to stand by your partner through thick and thin. Yandy pushed too hard. Rasheeda snapped back. And soon the whole room was holding its breath, watching two powerful women throw verbal punches that cut deeper than anyone expected. And then Kirk walked in. He wasn't just stepping into an argument, he was stepping into years of built-up resentment. He had heard enough of Yandy's criticisms, enough of the whispers about his marriage, enough of the judgment cast on the way he handled his life with Rasheeda. For Kirk, this wasn't about defending his wife. It was about defending himself. About silencing someone he felt had crossed the line one too many times. His words were harsh, unfiltered, laced with anger. The volume rose. The crowd around them tried to de-escalate, but Kirk wasn't listening. Yandy's face went from shock to fury as she realized this wasn't just Rasheeda lashing out anymore, it was Kirk, fully stepping into the battlefield. And with his presence, the fight escalated from a war of words into something far uglier. By now, the whole room was chaos. People screaming, hands pulling, cameras catching every raw second. Rasheeda, instead of calming Kirk, doubled down, shouting over Yandy, throwing more fuel onto the fire. Yandy stood her ground, her voice shaking but strong, refusing to let Kirk's rage silence her. The air was heavy. Every second stretched like it could break at any moment. And when Kirk finally lunged forward, the room erupted. Cast members jumped in. Chairs scraped against the floor. People rushed to hold him back, but the damage was done. The line had been crossed, and nothing would ever be the same. Part 1 ends here with the moment frozen in time. The shockwaves of Kirk's attack leaving everyone stunned. And the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. What started as a fight between Rasheeda and Yandy had spiraled into a full-blown war. With Kirk Frost right in the center, the room didn't feel like a set anymore. It felt like a battlefield. Kirk's outburst had turned what was supposed to be just another night of filming into a moment that would live in reality TV history. Producers shouted for calm. Cast members rushed in to grab his arms. And the cameras zoomed in on faces filled with pure shock. Yandy was still standing, refusing to back down, her chest heaving, her eyes locked on Rasheeda and Kirk like lasers. She had just watched a man, someone who was supposed to be her friend's husband, step toward her with fury in his eyes. And the message was clear. He wanted to shut her up no matter what it took. "Did you really just try me like that?" Yandy's voice cracked through the chaos, trembling with both fear and rage. "You think you can silence me? You think you can intimidate me?" Her words echoed, cutting through the noise as people scrambled to hold Kirk back. But Kirk wasn't the only one boiling over. Rasheeda, standing behind him, shouted just as loud, throwing words that stung like daggers. "You always run in your mouth about my marriage. You don't know what I deal with. You don't know nothing about me and Kirk." Her hands flew, her body language was wild, but her voice carried something deeper than anger. It carried hurt. For years, she had fought to defend her relationship, to prove to the world that despite the scandals, despite the rumors, despite Kirk's past mistakes, their love was real. And now Yandy was tearing it all down in front of everyone. The other cast members looked torn. Some pulled Yandy away, whispering for her to calm down. Others stood by Rasheeda, shielding her, glaring at Yandy like she was the one who had crossed the line. The room was divided, friendships put to the test in real time, and then came the confessions. In her interview chair. Yandy's voice was still shaking. "I've dealt with a lot in my life. I've been judged, I've been dragged, I've had my family ripped apart in the public eye. But never have I had another woman's husband come at me like that. And for Rasheeda to stand there and let it happen? Nah, that's betrayal. That's not friendship." Cut to Rasheeda in her own chair, her face tight, her voice steady but cold. "Yandy don't understand. She don't live my life. She don't know what it means to fight for a marriage that everybody's rooting against. She don't know what it means to hold your family together when the world's trying to tear it apart. Kirk is my husband, and I'm gonna stand by him, period. And Kirk." His words were raw, unapologetic. "I'm tired of people coming for me. I'm tired of people talking about my marriage like they got it all figured out. Yandy been crossing the line for too long. Tonight, I had enough." The contrast was staggering. Each person believed they were in the right. Each person believed they had been pushed too far. And the viewers watching from home, they would see not just a fight, but a friendship collapsing in real time. Back in the room, the shouting slowed, but the damage was done. Yandy pulled herself away from the group, holding her back, her hands shaking. "I was your sister," she shouted at Rasheeda, her voice breaking now with emotion instead of fury. "I stood by you. I supported you. And you let him come at me like that? You let your man disrespect me in front of everybody." Rasheeda shook her head, tears starting to build in her eyes but masked by her anger. "You don't get it, Yandy. You never did. This is my life. This is my marriage. And if you can't respect that, then we don't got anything else to talk about. The silence that followed was deafening. For years, these women had stood side by side, through scandals, through heartbreaks, through the ups and downs of reality TV, and now, in one explosive night, it had all come crashing down behind the cameras. Producers whispered frantically, knowing they had just captured lightning in a bottle. This wasn't just drama. This was the kind of raw, unscripted moment that fans would be talking about for years. The fight had already made history, but the fallout was only beginning. As the night dragged on, whispers filled the air. Some of the cast questioned Kirk's temper, wondering if he had gone too far. Others defended him, saying he had a right to protect his wife. Lines were being drawn, and people who had once been neutral were now choosing sides. Yandy, still trembling, walked off set. Her mic caught her last words before she stormed out the door. I don't need this. I don't need people in my life who can't respect me. Rasheeda showed me exactly who she is tonight, and I believe her. Meanwhile, Rasheeda stayed behind, sitting with her head in her hands, surrounded by castmates who tried to comfort her. But she wasn't crying for the cameras. She was crying because she knew what had just happened would change everything. Not just her friendship with Yandy, but her own image in the eyes of everyone watching. And Kirk. He stood tall, unrepentant, telling anyone who would listen that he wasn't wrong. That he had done what any husband would do. That he wasn't about to let another woman tear down his marriage. Part 2 closes with the cast scattered, broken into factions. Trust shattered, alliances redrawn, and the tension thicker than ever. What started as a fight between two women had become a war that dragged everyone into its orbit. And as the cameras faded, one thing was clear. This was far from over. The dust hadn't settled. Days had passed since the explosive fight, but the energy was still raw, like a wound that refused to heal. The clip of Kirk lunging, the sound of Yandy's trembling voice, Rasheeda's defiance, it had already spread like wildfire across social media. Fans were taking sides. Hashtags were trending. And the cast couldn't walk into a room without whispers following them. But for Yandy, this wasn't about trending topics. This was about betrayal. She replayed the moment over and over in her head. Rasheeda standing silent while Kirk came at her. The man she had called family, the woman she had called a sister, both had turned against her in the same breath. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was heartbreak. In her confession, Yandy's eyes brimmed with tears. You don't expect your enemies to protect you, but you expect your friends not to hurt you? And Rasheeda, she hurt me in the deepest way possible. She chose him over me. She let him come for me, and she didn't stop it. That's not friendship. That's not loyalty. That's betrayal. Meanwhile, Rasheeda was standing firm in her own truth. Sitting across from the cameras, her voice carried steel. Everybody got an opinion, but nobody's walking in my shoes. Yandy been disrespecting me and Kirk for a long time. She crossed a line. My husband defended himself, and I stood by him. I don't regret that. I can't regret protecting my marriage. If that costs me a friendship, then so be it. The stage was set for one final clash. When the cast gathered again, the energy was electric. No one wanted to be the first to speak, but the tension forced the words out eventually. Yandy walked in with her head high, her expression calm but unyielding. Rasheeda sat across from her, arms crossed, waiting, ready. And Kirk. He leaned back, his presence heavy, daring Yandy to challenge him again. The silence stretched until Yandy finally spoke. Her voice was low, deliberate, cutting through the air like a blade. I just want to know one thing, Rasheeda. After everything we've been through, after all the years we called each other family, how could you let him disrespect me like that? Rasheeda's jaw tightened. It wasn't about disrespect. It was about boundaries. You've been crossing lines, Yandy. Judging me, judging my marriage. Like you know better than me. Enough was enough. Yandy shook her head slowly, her eyes glistening. Boundaries? You call that boundaries? That man, your husband, stepped to me in a way no man ever should. And you stood there and you let it happen. You didn't defend me. You didn't protect me. You chose him. And in that moment, you showed me exactly where I stand in your life." The room held its breath. Cast members leaned in, watching, waiting. Nobody dared interrupt. Kirk finally leaned forward, his voice sharp. "You don't get to come into my marriage and talk about me like you know me. You don't get to disrespect me and think I won't respond. I'm not here for your drama, Yandy. I'm here for my wife, my family. And if you've got a problem with that, then you can keep your distance." Yandy's face hardened. She looked at Kirk, then back at Rasheeda. "See? That's the problem right there. You think it's about me disrespecting you? But really, it's about you not being able to take the truth. And the truth is, Kirk, you've hurt Rasheeda more than anyone else ever could. And instead of standing up for her, she's standing up for you. That's not love. That's fear," gasps echoed. Heads turned. Rasheeda's face flushed, her hands trembling as she gripped the armrest of her chair. "You don't get to tell me what my marriage is," Rasheeda snapped, her voice breaking but fierce. "You don't get to decide what's love and what's not. I know my life. I know my choices. And I'm not going to let you sit here and shame me for them." Yandy's voice softened. It's almost a whisper now, but it carried more weight than any scream. "I wasn't trying to shame you. I was trying to protect you. But I see now, you don't want protection. You want validation. And if validating you means letting your man attack me, then I can't be that kind of friend." The silence after her words was unbearable. Rasheeda's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, her lips pressed into a thin line. Kirk glared, his chest rising and falling, the muscles in his jaw twitching. One of the castmates finally broke the tension. "This ain't gonna end good. Y'all either need to walk away, or this whole thing's gonna destroy every relationship in this room." But neither woman moved. They sat there, staring across the chasm between them. The bond they once shared shattered beyond repair in her final confession of the night. Yandy said it with clarity. "Sometimes you lose people you thought you'd have forever. But maybe losing them is the only way to find peace." And Rasheeda, her voice was low, almost resigned. "I don't know if we can ever come back from this. But I know one thing, I'm always going to choose my marriage. No matter what it costs me." As the cameras pulled back, the image was unforgettable. Yandy and Rasheeda, sitting on opposite sides, a broken sisterhood lying in pieces between them. And in the middle, Kirk Frost, the man whose anger had lit the fuse. Unapologetic to the very end. The fight had started with words, escalated to an attack, and ended with the destruction of a friendship once thought unshakable. The fallout would ripple for seasons to come, reshaping alliances, redefining loyalties, and reminding everyone watching that in this world, trust is fragile and betrayal cuts the deepest. Fade out. If you thought this showdown was wild, trust me, the next twist is even bigger. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Whose side are you on, Yandy or Rasheeda? Because this drama is only just beginning. This drama is only just beginning.